Hey, my name is Kayla and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about A Court of Silver Flames and my love for Nesta. Let's go! It is a rare occurrence for me to know that I am already going to love a book before I even start it. And that was how I was going into A Court of Silver Flames. So I went into this book with a huge bias of knowing that this is the character arc that I have been dying to read, and I had these huge expectations of loving this book. Other people's opinions on this book seem to either sway in the direction of loving it or hating it. And I think your opinion on the book will heavily depend on whether or not you like Nesta as a character, because if you cannot stand her, then this book will be really rough for you, since basically it's all Nesta all the time. Before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want more book videos. So also just a warning, this video will have a bunch of spoilers, so be aware if you haven't read the book yet and you don't want anything ruined for you. So A Court of Silver Flames is written in third person, and it focuses on Nesta, which is Feyre's older sister. We first meet Nesta in A Court of Thorns and Roses, and Nesta consistently reappears in all three of Feyre's centered books. So Nesta is selfish, she's bitter, she's a character who always has her guard up, and right away I just loved her. So even when we're supposed to be on Feyre's side and think that Nesta was like a bad person, I did not care. I wanted more of Nesta just because I loved how much Sarah Maas wrote her character in the three books preceding this one. And I knew that she was going to make for an interesting character arc once we got to see like her side of things. I love Nesta so much because I love a headstrong character. I loved the point in I think it was the second book, where she points at the king while being forced into the cauldron, basically promising him to death. And I loved that she took too much from the cauldron as a punishment for what was being done to her. I love that she has feelings for Cassian, but she's holding back on them and she's wanting to hide them. And the whole scene in Wings and Ruin when Cassian is hurt and she kills the king, just like, yes, like so much yes. In the end of Wings and Ruin, that leads us into this book, The Silver Flames. So Nesta is suffering from trauma from the war, understandably, and she has basically been self-sabotaging, and she's doing anything that she can for self-destruction. So we've seen Feyre struggle with trauma as well. We watch her overcome this in the Mist and Fury book and the Wings and Ruin book. But there is a marked difference between their two struggles and how they respond to them. So Feyre and Rhys help each other through the trauma. They discuss what happened. They have moments where they talk about their feelings, and ultimately they lean on each other for healing. Nesta, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. So she pushes everyone away, especially Cassian, and she does not want to discuss how she's feeling with anyone. I think she does this because she doesn't want to be seen as weak. She is a very proud person, and we especially learn this in the beginning of Silver Flames when she refuses to train in front of all the Illyrians because I think she doesn't want them to see her fail publicly. Nesta very clearly hates herself, and she is just drowning in her sorrow. There are many examples of dialogue where we just see her dark thoughts, and we get to see just truly how much she loathes herself. I am worthless and I am nothing, Nesta nearly said. She wasn't sure why the words bubbled up, pressing on her lips to voice them. I hate everything that I am, and I am so, so tired. I am tired of wanting to be anywhere but in my own head. Gwen sighed. Meryl will make your life a living hell, you know. She can try, Nesta said mildly. It'd be difficult to make it any worse. Or maybe it was like one of the ancient stories she heard as a child. He, a wicked queensman huntsman, leading her into the deep wild before carving out her heart. She wished he would. Wished somebody would cut the damn thing out of her chest. Wished somebody would smother the voice that whispered every horrible thing that she had ever done. Every awful thought she had. Every person she'd failed. So I thought that SJM did a really good job of writing some really powerful passages to show us kind of like just low-key like things that Nesta would slip in to show just how much she was unhappy and how much she really, really just disliked herself. And ultimately, I thought this book did a great job of letting Nesta save herself. She was forced into this path of improvement, but ultimately it was her and her alone that healed herself. She did have help along the way, and I loved the relationship development between her and Cassian, but he did not play the hero. And he didn't push her, and he gave her the space that she needed to be the hero of her own story, and I really loved that. And I think that is important because truly I think you have to be the one to improve yourself. And I think she got to a point where she wanted to change, but she wanted to change for herself and not for anybody else. Throughout the book, we saw that she did the training and she got stronger so that she would never feel weak again. She kept trying the stairs because she wanted to push herself. She was able to foster and maintain these relationships with Emery and Gwen because she genuinely liked them, and she had started to have this feeling of seeing like the value in having relationships with others. And then she also didn't allow herself to love Cassian until she started to love herself first. And there's this part near the end where she's talking to Cassian. This passage kills me. And I loved that we got to see how she's been feeling about him. Nesta said hoarsely, "You are good, Cassian, and you are brave and brilliant and kind. I could kill anyone who has ever made you feel less than that, less than what you are. And I know I'm part of that group, and I hate it." Her eyes burned, but she fought past it. "You are everything I have never been and will never be good enough for. Your friends know it, and I've carried it around with me all this time, that I do not deserve you." I love that passage, and I feel like it's like the epitome of showing why she was pulling away from him throughout the entire time and why she wouldn't just allow herself to admit that she loved him. In this book, Nesta was made into a character who could take care of herself, and she was forced into situations where SGM could have had Nesta be saved by Cassian or somebody else, and I actually had expected him to come to her rescue many times, but he didn't. SJM made Nesta the hero of her own story, and I love that. Now granted, SGM also made Feyre a very strong character who took care of her own shit, but in Silver Flames, it felt different when Nesta was taking care of herself. I think with Feyre, we saw her taking care of everyone and everything else in the beginning of the book series. So I wasn't surprised that she was able to handle herself, and I would have expected nothing less from her. But with Nesta, she had always been taken care of. So when she was forced into situations where suddenly no one was going to save her, I was impressed by her ability to step up. We also have a turning point in her dialogue where she decides that she's done being weak, and I just love this passage. "Never again. Never again would she be weak. Never again would she be at someone's mercy. Never again would she fail. Never again, never again, never again." Step to step, she didn't stop, couldn't stop. As if she had been freed from a cage she hadn't realized she had been held in. Every step downward, she heard the words, "Never again." And examples of her stepping up and having to take care of herself starts with the many times when she would start her descent down the stairs. I expected Cassian to be there for her or to fly her back up once she got to the point where she couldn't continue. I kept expecting him to pop up and be like, "Let's go, back up." But instead we got to see her get to the point where she could no longer continue with her descent, and then she would have to turn around and drag herself back up all on her own. And then the part where she was taken by the Kelpie, I had expected there to be a moment where suddenly Cassian was there and he saved her from the water and killed the Kelpie. But no, Nesta had to reach deep inside of herself and find the ability to use her powers to save herself by way of the mask. And I love that scene where she puts the mask on and she slays him, and then she comes out of the water and she has the mask on and they have to bow to her because of her power, and it was just so powerful. I loved that scene so much. The other big surprising moment for me when she had to take care of herself was when Nesta, Emery, and Gwen were taken to participate in the blood rites. So in the beginning, when we were learning that had they been taken and what they had to do, I had expected Cassian to somehow show up to save her somehow, and I should have known by this point in the story that this wasn't going to happen, and that was confirmed when I read the moment when he was talking to Rhys and he wanted to go and he wanted to save her, but he learned that he was unable to. But prior to that, I couldn't help but think that he was just gonna show up and save the day for her, which I should have known better. I should have known by then, no, Nesta's gonna take care of herself. And by making Nesta the hero of her own story, she was able to start seeing her own self-worth. She became a stronger person, and along the way, she learned how to want people in her life versus pushing everybody away and self-sabotaging. She did not need everybody, but she in turn wanted Emery and Gwen as her new family. She wanted Cassian as her mate. She allowed herself to bring that happiness into her life, and for once, she actually deemed herself worthy of it. So this is the book that I really needed for Nesta. I wanted to see a story from her point of view where she was forced to deal with her own problems and become a stronger person in the end. And I thought that SJM did a fantastic job. I love that now we are getting a story in third person view that isn't focusing on Feyre and Rhys. I think that there is potential for so many great stories about these other characters that she's created. And now, especially after reading Nesta's story and seeing how well she can change this character and mold her and make her become better, I really just can't wait to see what she releases next in the series. I know that everybody is, I'm assuming that it's going to be about the third sister, Elaine, and kind of like her progression and everything. She hasn't been a super prevalent character, I don't think, in the series. I'm not super interested in her like I was with Nesta, but I'm hoping that if the next book is centered on her, that kind of changes and we get to see like this great arc for her as well, because it was a lot of fun being able to see Nesta's side of things and seeing how she changed and how she grew. I thought it was fantastic. I loved how it ended. Overall, I'm very, very pleased with this one. And I just can't wait to see what the future holds for the series. It's been super fun reading it. They're very lengthy books, but they are so packed full of like great storytelling, and I just have a lot of fun reading them. So I'm super, super excited to continue with the series as she releases them, and I hope that everybody enjoys the series as much as I do. So those are my thoughts on A Court of Silver Flames. I love Nesta. I think she's a great character. Let me know what you thought about the book or Nesta in the comments below, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!